The story of the group begins in the army, where five of us really met in an entertainment corps called Nachal, where we spent 3 years. Each one got out at a different time period, and eventually, after a year, when everyone was out of the army, we got together again, and we formed this group called Kוורת.
This is Danny Sanderson, Kweret's 23-years-old leader, the one who wrote and composed the songs of the group. He also happened to be the only Kווeret member who volunteered to express himself in English. So I met Sanderson the other day in a small dusty cellar in Tel Aviv, where the group is rehearsing intensively for its Eurovision performance.
The name Kוורת, translated, means beehive. I mean, there's nothing too symbolic about it. But it's just, in Hebrew, it just sounds nice. It's just a name that rings nicely. So this group was originally started on a collective basis where there was absolutely nothing in the future that promised anything such as a commercial success. So we began working for, it was about 5 months together, with everyone just giving of himself and of his time, with just the hope that maybe something would come out of it.
Your music appears to be an Israeli music, typical Israeli music, but played or arranged in a way of pop music.
I guess it's type O, to the extent that it's maybe universal, but it's also local, to the extent that it does have certain motifs that are exclusive to this area. For instance, there's a song called Joseph, What's Happening, which has a lot to do, by the way, with the instrument. It's an instrumental, really. So you can imagine what the name has to do with what happens musically. Anyway, it also has a few, you could say, Israeli motifs in it. And I don't know if it's not so much Oriental or something. It's maybe, you could call it Jewish rock. It sort of caught on much faster than we expected, because what happened was we really didn't have any real commercial intentions, to the extent that we thought that this would be good for a limited audience, and that, it would be, every weekend or something, and for a crowd of 300 or something like that. But we never imagined that it would fill auditoriums every day, and sometimes twice a day, twice a night. Maybe what appeals to people is the fact that the group itself has a threefold effect on the audience, to the extent that, first of all, it's an instrumental group, secondly, it sings, and thirdly, it also acts. All this in one single group of people. While usually this sort of thing is divided between actors and a group behind them, and maybe some dancing or something like that, or special singers who deal with that specially. And plus the fact that it is original material. So, but the truth is that the show deals with nothing. In other words, it's just a collection of songs that are put together. What ties them up are several stories, funny stories. We think they're funny. And sometimes people think they're funny too, but not always. That's the problem. And what happens is we tell these stories, and after the story there's a song that sort of represents the story. So if there's one song, let's say, one story perhaps about a guy who falls in love with his boots, you see, and he finally finds them in the arms of somebody else, which is a tragedy, when you think of it. So it's the type of thing you'd want to sing about, you see. So there's a song after the story, the monologue, it's called Magafayim Shel Baruch, for example. Perhaps it's possible to explain the type of humor appearing in the show by giving a few examples. The monologues consist of one-liners, basically. In other words, it's sort of a stand-up comedian. In other words, a person stands and reads off a monologue on a certain person or a certain funny situation. And in Israel, they're not so used to this sort of form of humor. In other words, the idea of a person standing and every sentence having its own sort of build-up and punchline is not very common. So that's one of the things that people did like. I mean, the type of thing, like you would say, did you know that 50% of married people are men? That sort of thing, or something old like cheer up, things could get worse, so I cheered up, and sure enough, things got worse. This sort of humor that sounds sick, and I don't know why we use it. But people enjoy it, and we have a good time. And that's really the basic theory behind the whole success of the thing. The group is consisted of a bass guitar played by Oloarchik, and a set of drums that belong to Meir Fenningstein. He also plays on them. And you have Jonathan Rechter. In Hebrew, it's Yoni Rechter. And Jonathan Rechter sounds great in English. And he plays piano in English, electric piano. And there's Ephraim Shamir, who plays 12-string slide guitar. It's electric. And Yitzhak Klapter, call him Churchill. He plays solo guitar, and myself, I play also solo guitar. And we have one more person who sings and does percussion and cooks a good spaghetti. And they laugh. They always laugh. Most of the work is done collectively, with the group itself giving all kinds of ideas. And as far as arrangement goes, usually the person, it's natural, because most of the material is mine, for example, and I would have more to say, let's say. But basically, the work is, everyone has his